The latest tech,
I'm Alexa. I can answer your questions.
interviews,
And we are evolving, and we are seeing an amazing opportunity that is happening.
accessibility.
Accessibility is one of our core values.
This is Double Tap TV.
Welcome to another edition of Double Tap TV. Thank you guys so much for being here, along for the ride. If you want to get in touch, email address is feedback@ami.ca. Send us absolutely anything. If you want to reach out on Twitter, follow us. It's @DoubleTapCanada with the hashtag, which is AskDoubleTap, and we'll get to those tweets on a future show. I am Marc Aflalo. Always by my side is Stephen Scott. Stephen, an exciting episode lined up for everybody this week, and I cannot wait to dive in.
Exactly. I'm going to show you my arm, and it's going to be wearing something that is not an Apple product, Mark. Are you surprised?
I am very surprised. Normally I have to pry those off your sweaty fists and get anything Apple out of your hands.
Thank you. That's a beautiful image to start the show. Beautiful description.
You know, that's what I'm here for. I'm here to set the stage. We are joined this week by Mitchell Whitfield, a familiar face on Double Tap TV. Mitchell, thank you so much for being here from live from Los Angeles.
Thank you for having me. Good to see you guys again. Of course, ironically, Sweaty Fists was my nickname in high school, so I immediately perked up when you said that about Stephen. I didn't know who you were talking to.
As Stephen alluded to, you know, I think we're all used to having an Apple Watch on our wrists when it comes to going out and about in our day. Actually, Mitchell, side story, Mitchell's actually hasn't been wearing an Apple Watch for a while. He's gotten old school. But this week, we're going to be talking all about smartwatches with the caveat that are not the Apple Watch, because I think that we finally reached the point in time where there are enough competitors out there to the Apple Watch that really do step up their game in a way that really hasn't been done before, right, Stephen?
You know, I've got to say that the Apple Watch for me was a game changer. It was the first, most accessible smartwatch out there. The question is, can other smartwatches compete?
Mitchell, you know, I know you've taken off your Apple Watch quite some time ago because you've gotten a little bit old school. I'm curious as to why that happened.
I had knee replacement surgery, so this is my first episode with you guys as like part man, part machine, so that's kind of exciting. And as a reward for surviving said surgery, my wife got me the Omega Seamaster, my holy grail watch, which I love. So now when I go for a walk, instead of putting on my smartwatch to measure my miles, how far I've gotten, my speed, I actually use it to wind my automatic watch. I use my walks to wind my Omega Seamaster. So that's why I made the switch. I kind of went old school to celebrate my new knee, and I just love the watch. And I missed actually wearing a proper watch. The Apple Watch is wonderful, but it's a piece of tech on my wrist. I don't really think of it as a watch, which is kind of interesting since I'll be talking about the Citizen CZ Smart, right? CZ Smart, right? Mark, I got that right. And I think that's the most interesting part of this, the actual feeling that I'm wearing a watch again, but I'll get into that in more detail when it's my turn.
And I've got the Ticwatch Pro 3 2020 LTE. Doesn't that just trip off the tongue? I'm so excited, Mark, I just can't hide it.
I've got the Huawei Watch Gt2 Pro, which kind of rolls off the tongue just like the Ticwatch. What was the Ticwatch Pro 2020? And
Ticwatch Pro 2023 LTE. I feel like I could dance to that.
Yeah, you can definitely dance to that. Guys, you know, I got to ask a question before we take a break, because we're going to dive into the feature set and everything that sets these guys apart after we take a quick break. But before we do get to that break, Stephen, a question for you really about accessibility, because we know the Apple Watch is the king of accessibility when it comes to any wearable device that's on the market today. But this is really our first venture down the road in Android Wear and in Huawei. I don't even know what they call the OS, but it's the Huawei OS, let's call it that. Was that a concern going into this? Were you worried, or do you feel that, you know, accessibility is pretty baked in Android Wear at this point?
Well, yeah, it's very interesting. So in Android Wear, Wear OS from Google, that is built in. I'll get into my feelings on that a bit later. But you have other smartwatches, like, for example, Samsung make watches, and they use the Tizen OS. And that does have some accessibility, but the experience is very different. I'm not quite sure what Huawei uses. But, you know, this is the problem, that with Android, it's a problem all over. Every single device comes with its own version or a version of Android, which creates a problem for us because often accessibility is left out or it's just not as good. So yeah, I did come into this with some trepidation. I'll tell you my findings on this later, but you know, even the Apple Watch, yes, it's good, but it does have its problems as well, despite, and this is the one thing I never understand, despite the fact that the Apple Watch and, you know, all smartwatches, in fact, are very simple user interfaces, very simple menu systems, they're often for some reason, not the most accessible, which is kind of strange. So we'll get into that a bit later.
Mitchell, the CZ Smart is the first real smartwatch from Citizen when you consider, smartwatch being a screen in place of a bezel and traditional mechanics in there. Right. Would you say, if you gave them a score of 1 to 10 in terms of their first endeavor, did they hit a home run on this one with that watch?
I think they definitely hit between a 7 and an 8, probably closer to an 8, which I think in the tech world is pretty darn good. I was really impressed. I'm not going to get too much into the innards of the watch. I just like saying innards. But in terms of performance, I think that's what surprised me the most, especially when you're talking about a first effort from a company that's not known as a tech company. Obviously, it's a traditional watch company. The responsiveness of the screen, the touch response of the screen, the performance. I was really impressed by that. And of course, it has all the bells and whistles, everything that you'd want from a smartwatch. We'll get into more details there. But I was really impressed as a first time out, especially considering I've been a Citizen Watch fan for a long time. As you know, Marc and I, we both love watches. I was talking about the Seamaster earlier, obviously. And Citizen, to me, has always been a brand that performed keeping time, telling time, even better than the Seamaster. Always very specific, always great build quality, very great value for what you pay. You get a lot back. So when I heard I was going to be getting this, I was excited because it was a brand that I already loved. So now to see that the performance on the smartwatch side is also there, I was really kind of jazzed. Definitely a high 7s, low 8s.
Yeah, I give it a high score to the Huawei Watch Gt2 Pro, but really because of health. And we'll talk all about that after we take a quick break. It is Double Tap TV. I am Marc with Stephen Scott and Mitchell Whitfield this week. After a break, we come back and dive into these 3 smartwatches. Stick around.
For more great Double Tap TV content, visit ami.ca/doubletap. This is Double Tap TV.
We are back on Double Tap TV. Thank you so much for being here along for the ride. Alongside me this week is Stephen Scott and Mitchell Whitfield. Gentlemen, we are talking all about smartwatches that are not the Apple Watch. I have to put that caveat, Mitchell, because Stephen is just, it's like a magnet. There's Apple, there's Stephen, and then it's like, boom, they just go together like a magnet. So we have to tear those two apart.
You know what? Well, here, let me tell you guys something, and I want to know if you guys had the same thing, because I had to force myself when I was looking at the features on this watch, because it's Android Wear OS. Okay, am I judging it because it's not doing it the way Apple Watch does, or because on its own it doesn't fill in blank, blank, blank? So I always had to make sure that I wasn't unfairly comparing it to something that it was not, and always for what it was. Did you guys have the same issue where you had to stop yourself from saying, well, it's not the Apple Watch in terms of this, and just say, oh, wait a minute, let me just review it for what it is? Did you guys deal with the same issue?
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem, and I sometimes wonder if that's because they got there, well, they didn't get there first, really, did they? I mean, I think Android watches were around, but it's just that Apple does it better. That's the problem. I know I've said it. I know I'm sorry, but it's just the truth.
Yeah, and the other thing to note is that even though they did not get there first, I feel like they have advanced quicker than everybody else. I really do believe that they have gotten farther in both the hardware and the software. But let's dive into my watch first, because I've got the Huawei Watch Gt2 Pro right in front of me over here. This is a very sexy looking smartwatch that, in so much that it really just feels like a regular analog round wristwatch. It's not one of those watches that you put on like, oh, this is someone trying to cram technology into something that shouldn't be there before. When I looked at this watch, the first thing I noticed in terms of design of this watch is you've got replaceable watch bands, just like the Apple Watch does. So you can style it up any way you want. It's got an anti-scratch sapphire glass touchscreen, which features incredible lightweight titanium design. So on your wrist, it doesn't feel like it's overly heavy. It doesn't feel like it's going to be cumbersome. It really feels like you're wearing a high quality watch itself. This watch, as you can see here, again, a beautiful design. You got that titanium display, that sapphire crystal. It's got 2 buttons on the right side of it that give you access to actual tactile information if you wanted to watch, which is pretty cool. Now here is one of the game changers that give this incredibly high scores. A 2-week battery life.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, I look at the Apple Watch, right? I mean, I know we're not supposed to compare, but if we are comparing Apples with Huawei's, then I guess I'm thinking I'm lucky to get a day.
Definitely. And when I say 2 weeks, guys, I honestly expected one of you to say, yeah, that's not possible. I'm going to tell you right now, okay, this watch was charged last over 7 days ago. So I'm going to turn the watch on.
Well, Mark, let me jump in. Let me ask you: is this normal usage, or do you just occasionally check the time? Does it actually
normal usage? Okay, not only normal usage, but I'm going to get to some of the features that are ongoing on this watch. And I've got a little camera angle here, and you can see when I slide down from the top of the screen, you could see 17% battery life remaining after over 7 days of daily usage. And honestly, I had to force myself not to put this on a charger at night just for that reason, so I could test it. Now, here's why this blows my mind, okay? Regular usage could be, workouts, etc., etc. This watch features 24-hour health monitoring. Okay, so it's tracking your oxygen level, your stress level, and your heart rate 24/7. So it's giving you a true image of what's going on in your body at all times. I wake up in the morning after wearing the watch at night because I don't have to worry about charging it, and I log into the app and I can see an instant snapshot of how my sleep was, how my oxygen was, how my heart rate was during the night or during the day. And it's got, of course, everything you can expect. It's got the workout mode, skiing, golf, and over 100 other sport modes that give you incredible details. And really, guys, that health tracking and that oxygen monitoring 24/7 absolutely blew my mind and has made this a watch that I want to wear more often because I want to track my sleep. I want to track my stress. I want to see all these things going on. And if I can with a snapshot just in an app, that really gives incredible numbers to my scale. Mitchell, how does a Citizen stack up when it comes to those features?
Well, let's start with the basics. First of all, as I told you, I'm a Citizen fan. I like their products. The build quality is always spot on. And this, from the second I put it on, it felt like a proper watch. I don't know if you guys can see right here. I have the, first of all, it has stainless steel body, okay? Stainless steel body, which has a nice heft to it, feels very, very solid, and yet it doesn't feel too large or too heavy on the wrist. It feels just right. It feels like a proper stainless steel watch with a silicone band. Beautiful design. I don't know if you guys can tell, I have a little bit of the Pepsi-style bezel that you'll see on some high-end watches, a little bit of an homage to Rolex, Seiko, and some other brands that do that Pepsi style on the bezel. Looks like a dive watch, actually is water resistant, fully water resistant to 30 meters. We don't have the sapphire crystal. I have sapphire crystal envy, Mark. This one only has Gorilla Glass, which is still very good, but sapphire crystal, as you know, is sort of the standard for a regular watch. Again, I love the features that sort of speak to people that love regular watches. So the build of this spoke to me. I was very happy wearing it because it felt like I was wearing a proper watch. And as I said earlier, the screen was surprisingly responsive. It was very intuitive to use. Swiping gestures, pretty much the same as you'd find on other Wear OS devices, other Google, Wear OS devices, but very simple to use. And because it looks, and the face is designed to look like I don't know if you can tell right here, look like a proper chronograph on your wrist. It has the 3 chronograph buttons that you would find, the traditional crown and the button on top, button on bottom, each which serve different functions. If I had to say this watch was leaning towards something, Mark, like you with your Huawei, I'd say health and fitness are the focus here. I think Apple Watch has sort of upped their game with health and fitness and is going in that direction now, adding, adding the blood oxygen, all the things to, and hopefully blood sugar levels coming next, we're hearing. So Apple is building on that, but I think other companies, Citizen, Huawei included, are really pushing the smartwatch function in the terms of fitness and health. And of course, you get sleep tracking with this. It doesn't have, I don't think it has the oxygen sensor yet, just the heart rate monitor, of course, which works very, very well, tracking your exercise, tracking your sleep. And everything that you would want pretty much from a fitness device is on this watch. Again, this is where I had to sort of stop myself from comparing it to Apple Watch in terms of the everyday app that I have on my iPhone. But I will say, everyday apps I have on my iPhone, this did function very well with my iPhone in terms of getting messages, in terms of answering my phone here. Again, not built-in cellular, but taking the cellular signal from my phone. It does have autonomous GPS. So if you do want to ditch your phone and leave it at home, you are not reliant on your phone's GPS to use this, which is great if you're selling it as a fitness product. It does have to have some sort of autonomy, not necessarily with a phone and with your messages, but in terms of GPS. So everything worked really, really well. The one thing I will say, and the one point of disappointment, which again, I'm having Huawei envy, was the battery life. Now, to Citizen's credit, they do have multiple modes that you can put this phone in. You can multiple modes in order to save battery. Traditional, get all the features you want. Scale down the screen a little bit to get longer battery life. Scale down further, so only when you flip the wrist do you get the brighter screen. I wanted to have it so that I had all the features going. And with all the features going, I could see every few minutes that, that battery starting to go down to the point where after a few hours I was down, 30%, which was not really great for what I was expecting from this watch. Now, first time out, this thing looks good, it feels good on the wrist, does what it's supposed to do. No, is it my Apple Watch with all the apps I'm used to on my Apple, on my iPhone? No. But then again, this is not designed to be. So again, high 7s, low 8s for me. I'm not digging it too much for the battery, but again, if you want to have all the bells and whistles going all the time, be prepared to charge this sucker a lot.
So we've talked Huawei, a known brand. We've talked Citizen, a known brand. Let's take a quick break and come back with Stephen Scott and talk about a brand that's new to the market, so to speak, and that is the Ticwatch. It is Double Tap TV. Stick around. We'll be back in just a moment.
Love Double Tap TV? Listen to AMI Audio for Double Tap Canada every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern for news and reviews on everything tech. This is Double Tap TV.
We are back on Double Tap TV. Thank you guys so much for being here. We're talking all about smartwatches that are not the Apple Watch. I am Marc Aflalo, alongside me Stephen Scott and Mitchell Whitfield this week. Stephen, it is your turn. We're now passing the baton to you to talk all about a brand that not too many people are familiar with, and that is Ticwatch.
Yeah, thank you for that baton. I look forward to picking that up. So, I have to start by saying that I am actually wearing an Apple Watch, and that may tell you a lot about what is coming up on my bit of the show here. But I am holding in my hands the Ticwatch Pro 3 2020 LTE model. It is an Android smartwatch, and I'm not going to run over a lot of the features that you guys have talked about because there's a lot of similarities in a lot of these watches. This also runs Wear OS by Google, which means you can use all your favorite apps like Google Maps, Google Fit, Spotify, and all that. And of course, you get Google Assistant as your voice assistant as well, which is pretty cool. It's got NFC built in, so that means you've got Google Pay when you're out and about for those contactless payments. It's a well-built watch. I'm not going to lie to you. It's well-built. It's got that stainless steel body. But, you guys are talking about sapphire crystal on yours. I've got plastic on my face, which is a bit, cheap. But there you go. The strap, though, it's silicone. So, that's okay. Certainly useful for the fitness side of things. And it is a smart-looking watch. It's a nice-looking watch. It most importantly looks and feels like a watch to me. And it's definitely designed to impress when you're out and about. But it's also impressive on the workouts as well. It can handle the odd knockabout, which is good. It's got all the relevant sensors in it so that you can, cover whatever workout you want to do. And it's got some great health features in there. You guys were talking about the benefits of health in your watches as well. It's the same here. You've got measurement of your heart rate, even measurement of blood oxygen saturation as well, which is pretty good on a device like this. Something that, as we all know, was just added into Apple Watch Series 6. It's also got the IP68 rated, which means basically you can go swimming with it, or you can wear it in the shower without fear of damaging it as well. The colour of mine is a shadow black, which to everyone else is just black. It's really pleasant watch to wear as well, and that's a key thing. It's a really nice watch to wear. It feels nice. It's got a big 47mm round frame that makes the display clear and bright as well. It really does feel like a real watch. Now that display, it's a 1.4-inch Retina AMOLED display with automatic brightness adjustment, which is adjustable. You can turn that on or off if you want. It also offers a low-power consuming screen. Now this is pretty cool. So if you're worried about your battery life, you can actually switch to this e-text-like backlight. If you think of your old Casio watch from the 80s, you've got the picture. Now accessibility built in, it comes thanks to Wear OS. You've got screen reader options like you do on the phone, and you've got large text options as well. The text is too small for me no matter what size it is, so I use the screen reader, which is okay. And I do have to put the caveat in here. I am doing a little bit of comparison on the Apple Watch. It's hard not to.
Don't do it, Stephen! Don't do it!
I've got to do it. I've got to do it. I cannot lie to people. The Apple Watch is fast, it's responsive. I just cannot get the same kind of responsiveness out of these Android watches, despite the fact this is running a pretty fast Snapdragon processor. It just doesn't have the power in it, in my view, to keep up with what I want to do. So that's a problem. Also, it doesn't work with all third-party apps, the screen reader that is. So be aware of that. That means that, some of the apps you go into won't be accessible. But for the sake of balance, some of the Apple Watch third-party apps don't work either. So it's not just all down to Android Wear. The big story of this, and I was actually quite excited to talk about this, and then Marc told us about his watch and battery life, and I kind of, my ship sank at this point, because the battery life on this, it is impressive. 72 hours in smart mode, so you get, 3 days out of that? That includes the tilt to wake, the press the button or touch the screen to activate the smart mode. You can enjoy thousands of apps and watch faces using the big AMOLED watch screen. Or you can switch to essential mode for an outstanding, wait for it guys, 45 days battery life. But that, of course, is your Casio watch, which you would expect to last probably even longer than 45 days, in fairness. This will actually automatically switch itself on when the battery's getting down to about 5%, or you can actually just turn it on manually on the watch. And it just helps you save battery life without losing any key information. Overall, a good watch. If the accessibility was better, it would hit a higher score. For me, it hits between 5 and 6.
Gentlemen, can I bring up something that I don't think anybody's ever talking about when it comes to these watches, and we'll kind of wrap up on this note, which is when Apple came out with the watch, they came out with a square design. They didn't try to make a round screen and fit, try to, come up with something that was different. They went with what was familiar, what was available in the market, and they said, okay, we know how to deal with this screen. Everybody else is trying to do these round displays, which I find are just cutting off real estate and trying to fit this traditional, square world that we live in, or this rectangular world that we live in, into this round display. And I find it really, really interesting that nobody else has come out with something, other than those cheap knockoffs, has come out with something compelling in a different design that's not round.
You know what, Mark? I mean, I'm just going to jump in here because you took the words right out of my mouth. This was there, and let me wrap up my portion of this with this. There are two reasons that we wear anything. We wear anything on our bodies, on our wrists. There are only two reasons. One, because we like the way it looks. The other reason, we like the way it performs. Apple, to me, has always been about performance. I've never been a fan of the way it looks. In fact, I know the rectangular screen is what we're used to with our phones, our computers, our tablets. I never liked it that much on the watch. I much prefer if I'm going to wear something on my wrist, maybe I've been programmed to like a traditional watch. So for me, when I look at these smartwatches, these Wear OS Android smartwatches, I'm thinking, for me, I love the way they look. If I could combine the performance of Apple Watch with the look, or with the look of these Android Wear devices, to me that would be a marriage made in heaven. I only wish that Apple was not so tight with their ecosystem and would let people use, watch, iOS on other devices. I could only imagine iOS on in this form factor. So rather than other people going with the square, I wish Apple would go with the round, or at least give, Watch OS to other companies and let them use their designs. That's what I was thinking.
Thank you so much for joining me this week, talking all about watches that aren't the Apple Watch. Mitchell Whitfield, thank you so much for being here. Of course, Stephen Scott, always by my side. You guys at home, if you've got something to say, I know you do after this week's show. It's feedback@ami.ca, and of course on Twitter, we are at DoubleTapCanada with that hashtag, which is AskDoubleTap. Thank you for being here. On behalf of Mitchell Whitfield and Stephen Scott, I am Marc Aflalo. We'll talk to you again next week.
For more great Double Tap TV content, visit ami.ca/doubletap. Hosted by Marc Aflalo and Stephen Scott. Editing, Will Latar. Production assistants, Wendy Kaufman. Content review, Zachary Aflalo. Social media, Andy Wynn. Segment producer, Sean Priest. Voiceover, Anna Vicino. Integrated Described Video Specialist, Ron Rickford. Coordinating producer, Jennifer Johnson. Director, Production, Kara Nye. Director, Programming, Brian Perdue. VP Content Development and Programming, John Melville. President and CEO, David Arrington. Copyright 2021, Accessible Media, Inc.